Now we bring you an exclusive interview with India's G20 Special Secretary Muktesh Kumar Pardeshi on preparedness for G20 summit. The interviewer is Bhupender Singh, Akashvani correspondent.
Sir, very warm welcome to Akashvani News.
Thank you very much for inviting to your show.
Sir, what kind of elaborate arrangements have been made to host the G20 Leader Summit in New Delhi?
We are only a few days away from the G20 summit, which will be held in New Delhi on 9th and 10th September. We have made elaborate arrangements, and those arrangements include reception arrangements at the airport, the parking arrangements for the special aircraft, then the movement from airport to different hotels, security, the motorcade, then the hospitality arrangements, how they'll be received at each hotels, and then the program details. The main summit program will be on 9th and 10th September. We all know that this will take place at newly constructed Bharat Mandapam, the state-of-the-art convention center in New Delhi.
Sir, what are the cultural events which have been planned for the G20 Leader Summit?
In terms of cultural elements, when our leader will host a gala dinner on 9th, there will be a cultural program before that, a musical program befitting the occasion. Apart from that, there are so many cultural elements. For instance, there is a cultural corridor being created at Bharat Mandapam. That cultural corridor will showcase some of the artifacts coming from different G20 and invitee countries. We are also having an exhibit on Bharat, Mother of Democracy. That will be at the media center, and a smaller one at a hall where we have country offices of different delegations. Apart from this, we are creating Crafts Bazaar. There all states are having their stall. They'll be exhibiting products from their region. Basically one district, one products, and GI products as well. They'll be also selling those products. So the whole idea is the delegates and media people and other officials who will be limited to Bharat Mandapam for 2-3 days, they will have some kind of shopping experience also. So when they leave India, they'll be able to carry something, as a remembrance of their trip to Delhi.
Sir, as you mentioned that the G20 Leader Summit will be organized in the Bharat Mandapam. So what kind of arrangement have been made in Bharat Mandapam and Pragati Maidan for the delegates?
Well, in any convention center, and for high profile event like this, you need a state-of-the-art convention center. And I'll explain you. At the center of the activity, we have G20 Summit Room, where there's sitting arrangement for leaders and only a few accompanying high-ranking ministers and officials each delegation. We have to have interpretation facility in different languages. Apart from this, security is of adequate scale that we have to provide, and we have to be taking care of the sensitivity and the requirements of each delegation. So area around Bharat Mandapam will be completely sanitized, and anybody who will be entering Bharat Mandapam, they will have prior security pass from the Delhi police. So any official will be entitled to enter only on the basis of necessity, and that they will have some role. Otherwise, nobody can enter. We also have to ensure that when all leaders, their delegates, ministers, officials, even friends from media and all support staff, whosoever will be there, we take care of their meals, because they will not be able to go out. So that's a part of the hospitality package.
Sir, the theme of India's G20 presidency is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So how does this theme reflect India's perspective of global challenges and cooperation?
Last year, when we were brainstorming about the theme, there were different ideas came forward, but this was closest to reflecting two things. One is our civilizational ethos. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not a new phrase. It comes from Upanishad. So over the centuries, our culture has imbibed this ethos. But it is also contemporary. When we say one world, one family, one future. So see the connect. Our wisdom, ancient wisdom, how does it play in modern and contemporary? We have during last few years, we have multiple crises and adversities in the shape of pandemic and economic recession. So when we are gathering in Delhi, I think Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam captures the essence and the contemporary challenges that we are facing. We need world to be treated as one family. to discuss global problems, because our destiny, our future is in walking together.
Sir, what are the key focus areas that India wants to showcase before the world during its presidency?
Well, the main focus is how to advance G20 agenda. And G20 over the last 20 years or so, they have been discussing principally financial matters, but when in 2008 it was elevated to summit level, there are several socio-economic issues also added, and those are called Sherpa track issues, and they range from health to culture and tourism as well. So practically there are more than 30 work streams which are discussed under G20 rubric. So what happens when leaders meet at the summit level? The main thrust coming from different meetings will be deliberated upon and find a place in the joint communique which is likely to be adopted at the New Delhi summit. And this includes, there are several contemporary issues. How to fast track attainment of sustainable development goals? How do we have more financing for development and in climate change? How do we progress so far as the women-led development is concerned? How do we have green development? How do we share the idea of technological transformation and how it will contribute to fast tracking development? These are some of the issues which finds echo during our presidency, and finally hopefully the sentiments will get reflected in the final communique.
So the Prime Minister has said that India G20 presidency has become a pupil presidency. So could you please elaborate?
That's right. Under Prime Minister's leadership, we have converted a diplomatic event into a national endeavor, a people's movement, a people's presidency. What is meant by it is that people feel part of this diplomatic event. Students, youth, women, all classes of our society, they're feeling part of this. From industrialists to a street vendor, they see that they're attached to G20. So I think it has become really a people's G20. This has been done by the way we have spread G20 meetings in 60 locations. I can say that all the states and union territories have been covered through this. It has really become some kind of national exercise, national endeavor. So all states, all union territories feel part of it. Then through several Jan Bhagidari events, we have tried to connect and share the message and essence of G20 presidency with the people. So large number of universities, colleges have become part of this process through what we call University Connect program. Large number of other Jan Bhagidari events like quiz competition, essay writing competition have happened. So through this, there is a huge awareness about the G20 presidency and the importance of India playing a bigger role on the world stage. And people feel part of it. That's how the G20 has become really a people's presidency.
Sir, during its G20 presidency, India has planned numerous multilateral gatherings. What notable milestones have been attained through these events in bolstering India's global influence and advancing its strategic interest?
The G20 works through several streams. There are working groups, there are engagement groups, and there are initiatives. Some of the works undertaken in working groups are very relevant for a country like ours. For instance, the working group on health, the working group on culture, tourism, or disaster risk resilience, they all take up our national priorities, are also channelized through discussions in this working group. What we have added a working group on disaster risk reduction, and that's a contribution of India. Similarly, in engagement groups, we have added one engagement group on Startup 20. It was earlier part of Business 20 program, but we thought India has a lead role in the startup sector, and here is an opportunity to give fillip to the works of the startup groups. So this has found a resonance. Similarly, in initiatives, we were able to have meetings of scientific advisors. And during COVID-19 crisis, scientific advisors to Prime Minister or President, they were in touch with each other for vaccination and development of certain protocols. So the meeting at that level, that gives some kind of strategic partnership with the G20, the countries in some niche area. So through multiple manner, we have been able to raise profile for India. We have been able to bring our national priorities on international agenda. And in that sense, G20 is a golden opportunity for showcasing our progress and creating favorable narrative about India.
Sir, how has India's emphasis on the concern and aspirations of the global south during its G20 presidency contributed to a shift in perception of the developed economies and engagement with the region's challenges?
This has really made our presidency unique. G20 evolved as a grouping of the most developed and emerging economies, the 20 top economies. But somehow the voice of the global south was not finding prominent place. So when India took the leadership, thought to organize some kind of consultative process with the leaders of the developing countries. And in January this year, there was a virtual meeting led by Honorable Prime Minister and attended by many Prime Ministers and Presidents all over the world. Some 125 countries participated. So this resulted into a consultative process. This kind of outreach event to consult 125 countries of the global south was never undertaken. So this is a significant contribution by India, and out of which comes the positive support for African Union to become permanent member of the G20. This is likely to be adopted at New Delhi summit. If that happens, that will be important contribution by India in G20 process.
Sir, India's G20 presidency agenda is centered on the core principle of the 4D, advancing decarbonization, digitalization, ensuring equitable development, and de-escalating conflicts. Could you shed light on the strategies India intends to employ to foster agreement and cooperation among the G20 member nations to effectively realize these objectives?
So, the first, decarbonization. That is a subject matter under Energy Transition Working Group. And there is another working group on climate change and sustainability and environment. G20 is more of an economic cooperation forum related more to development and growth. Peace and conflict issues are there, but they are taken up indirectly because there are other world forums where those things are discussed. But digitalization, there is a strong focus on that, and under our leadership we are championing that through digital transformation we can leapfrog in developmental space. So what has happened in India in digital space, for instance, creation of digital public goods, like Aadhaar or UPI. Many countries are appreciating the contribution and development what has happened in India in this sector. This is finding resonance amongst the world leader, and we are going to create an exhibition on Digital India Experience Zone at Bharat Mandapam for leaders and other delegates to see for themselves.
Sir, India's digital public infrastructure has become a powerful instrument in providing services directly to the citizens. How far has India been able to showcase digital public infrastructure as a viable model for the other countries?
Mr. Nandal Nilekani was making a presentation before the Business 20, said that what India has achieved in 9 years in this space, it would have taken 47 long years to achieve that. The point here is through digital transformation and through creation of digital public infrastructure, India has taken advantage of progress in this sector in order to achieve faster growth. So this is an area on which a lot of emphasis is given by our side, and we would like to share our experience with countries of global south as well as countries of the developed world. There is a greater appreciation of the role played by digital transformation, whether it's a financial inclusion or providing citizen services. For example, during the time of COVID-19, the way our vaccination program was unleashed in India, it could happen only with the support of digital public infrastructure.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving your precious time to Akashvani News, sir.
Thank you.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with India's G20 Special Secretary, Muktesh Kumar Pardeshi, on Preparedness for G20 Summit. The interviewer was Bhupendra Singh, Akashvani correspondent. The program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official.